The undisputed number one reason that weed control is difficult is the definition of a weed. And the definition of a weed is an undesired plant or a plant out of place. And the reason why that makes it difficult is because if a weed was objective, if it was an object that was not determined on anything that was relative to somebody else or related to something else or somebody else, then we would always know when weed control was successful. But it's not, because a weed is solely determined on whether or not it's wanted, and so a person has to determine that. The person who wants the weed killed and the person who's killing the weed for that person have to be on the same page, and that's not always so easy. But for example, right here, I've got several weeds along this fence line here. Well, supposedly called weeds. Right here we have a crepe myrtle shoot. A crepe myrtle is not a weed. A crepe myrtle is a tree. But right here it's a weed because right here they want zoysia grass. They don't want a crepe myrtle to grow. So this crepe myrtle shoot is a weed right here. Traveling along a little further. Right here, almost fell down there, we have doveweed. Doveweed is green, and it really likes to come up on the edges of yards where the grass is more bare. And so some people would say, hey, it's green, leave it, I want it. Other people would say, hey, this doveweed is not zoysia, so please get rid of it. I could probably stay in the same spot, but right here, I don't know if you can tell in this video, we have Bermuda grass and a zoysia lawn. It's green, it's in the same family as zoysia grass. Most people would say, hey, it's green. They can't even really tell the difference, except for some times of the year it changes, and that's also what can make weed control so difficult. Is different times of the year, the different plants are more desired or less desired than others, and other years they blend in, and so then it's not a weed that time of year. It doesn't become a weed except for maybe that 1 or 2 or 3 months period out of the year. Then that's when I don't want it, but otherwise I'm fine with it. I'm okay with it. And so hopefully that really helps you to understand where I'm going with that. And I just have a few other really great examples. So you have torpedo grass, 100 square feet of it in a Bermuda yard like this. I don't have any torpedo at this particular yard, at least not that I've noticed before. We'll see if I see any while I walk. But 100 square feet, that's like if you put a basketball goal on the ground, 10 feet by 10 feet wide, 10 feet wide by 10 feet long. That's 100 square feet. In a big yard, such as this one, that would really stand out. And that would be a weed. But if you have torpedo grass that filled this whole area, 1,000 square feet, this particular area is bigger than 1,000 square feet, but just for example, 1,000 square feet, now it's your yard. Like, it's not necessarily a weed. Right here, when you get into the shade in the corner of a yard, you know why so many yards have different types of turf grass is because different types of turf tolerate different weaknesses or tolerate certain growth conditions that other grasses can't. And so then over time a yard gets St. Augustine in it, Bermuda in it, zoysia in it, different types of grass. And so that makes it relative. Like, well, is the end goal, the person who wants it, you know, are they okay with these different kinds of grass? And if they don't, then it's a weed. And you have to respect that, and you have to go after that. Other people, they say, hey, it's green, just leave it. Dallas grass, it's our number one weed. This yard in particular, you know, they don't want the Dallas grass, except they were okay with it, as long, you know, because they don't want dead spots. But when there's another possibility, such as Tribute Total, well, okay, yeah, now I'm going to call this a weed. I do want this gone. And so, you know, all plants, they start off with a purpose, with a place, and you know, it's a good thing. Even poison ivy is a forage for deer, for wildlife. Humans don't like it, we don't want it, it's always a weed to us. But Dallas grass, for example, it's a forage crop for cattle. We brought it from South America to the United States back in the 1800s, I believe it was. So it had a good reason, but when it gets into a place it wasn't intended to get, that's when it becomes a weed. Bermuda grass in a bed, in a landscape bed, that's a weed. Bermuda grass in a yard, well, some yards, it depends on what you think, may or may not be a weed. Nutgrass, this was one of my favorite examples. I know a person, I won't say their name, but they got on their hands and knees and plucked out every single piece of Bermuda grass out of their lawn because they wanted the nutsedge. Because the nutsedge, they found it was green all the time. Their lawn care company didn't do a good job of getting rid of the nut grass. It was always green after the treatments, more green than the Bermuda grass. And so they said, hey, I want my yard to be nut grass. That's one of the reasons we call it nut sedge, just to help people to understand it's part of the sedge family. It's a type of weed. But anyway, as you can see, it's highly relative. It's highly relevant to what somebody thinks, and so it makes it so much more difficult. It weaves into many of the other top reasons weed control is difficult. Sometimes it can be hard to separate this number one reason, but I think it's number one because it is part of every decision you ever have to make. You always have to consider, is it needed or is it necessary? Is it desired? Is it okay during certain times of year when it does show its head? And so I hope that helps. I hope that encourages, challenges, teaches, and helps you to appreciate weed control.